Let me begin with this, okay, he has a BA honors and MA in history from Hindu College, right? And then he did his PhD, MPhil in in modern history from JNU. And he was also awarded Junior Research Fellowship by UGC. He has, as far as management education is concerned, he has got several sort of certification with him. He has done PG CHRM from XLRI Jamshedpur. He is certified on MBTI, DISC, NLP, Hogan. Oh my God, it's at least 10, 12, things on which he is got a certification. He is a life member of ISTT, and also he is good contributor to Human Capital magazine, where he has a monthly column on training, design, and delivery. He has also written a book, Cracking the CSAT Code at Call Center. So that's this thing. Now, about his work experience and professional experience, he has got 24 years of work experience, and 18 of which has been in HR-related roles, and which includes learning and development, organization development, talent acquisition, corporate communications, employee engagement. So he has a whole range of practical experience. Dipankar also has added the L&D function for large conglomerates, including companies like IBM Global Process Services, Hero Corporate Services, Tata Projects Limited, like that. So that's a sort of his corporate experience. As far as his teaching is concerned, he has been a visiting faculty for many years at Tata Institute of Social Sciences for their PG diploma in human resources, and here he specializes in the training and development, performance management, talent acquisition, right? He is also a visiting faculty to other institutes like WLCI, CSIR's Academy, and like that. So this is just a brief outline of Mr. Dipankar Das, and I'm sure with his rich experience both in corporate and also in teaching and faculty role, he would be able to bring great value to all of you. So welcome, Mr. Dipankar Das. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and we look forward to your sessions, right. So floor is yours now, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the nice introduction, and really feeling nice to be part of this program. I have been associated with ISTT for a long time. I am a life member, and very nice to be, to be part of this program. So great. Good evening, everyone. And we will be covering talent management. So this is a topic which is very critical in today's day and time, and we uh, we will be covering about covering it holistically in a spread across 6 sessions, starting today. So before I start on talent management, if you can give me an idea in terms of what bell does it ring in your mind when we talk of talent management? What occurs to you when you hear the word talent management?
Good evening. To me, talent management would be managing the entire life cycle of an employee, probably from the acquisition phase till the exit, and how we are able to retain and provide a good career opportunity to the person, how we can design that and execute. It would be talent management, and end of the day with the perspective that the organization benefits, the organization's mission is achieved through the productivity.
Great. Anybody would like to add to what Arpita said?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Vivek. Just
Yes,
to
Vivek,
add
could
to
you?
what Arpita has said, that talent management, maybe it is actually how we are able to manage our employees by giving them proper skills and knowledge from time to time, by upgrading them, and major is how to retain them in today's world, how to retain our talent so that they are a resource to the organization.
Right. Great. I think both Arpita and you have earned yourself a virtual chocolate. So this will reach you virtually. Yes, good. So talent management is an entire gamut of activities that involves hiring, then retaining, developing, and leveraging the human talent that is available for an organization. Now, before we talk about talent management, probably it's a good idea to delve a bit deeper into why talent management has become important of late. So, uh, management studies really started, sometime in the first decade of the 20th century. You know, so there was a French writer, Henri Fayol, and then of course you had the American writers who came up, and they started doing time and motion studies. They looked at productivity, and they measured various dimensions of business, and basically they try to project that how can we improve productivity in the business. And they looked at many variables. How much can a worker do in a certain given time? How much can a worker produce? And you basically had multiple time and motion studies where you looked at how you could take out more work from a worker. Now, those days there was you know there were few industries, and they were mass based. You had a lot of people available, and everybody was doing the same kind of work. You had thousands of workers all queuing up outside the factory gates and saying that they want to be employed. And you basically had a pick and choose. You could just after the 1,000 people standing outside the gate, you could choose 500 and get them in, get them to start working. Working was fairly simple, and people would just do a repetitive set of tasks which they were asked to do. And on top of them, you had one supervisor, and on top of the supervisor, probably you had a floor manager, and then you had the business leaders. So organization was fairly simple, work was simple, fair, straightforward, and there was nothing very complex about things. Now, then came the two world wars, and gradually things become started becoming more complex. And as things became more complex, what happened was that the people who were required to run the complex organizations, they became a bit scarce. So it was not as easy as things used to be, that 500 people would be standing outside the gate and you just had to open the gate and let them in. Now you had to pick and choose, because everybody couldn't run the increasing complexity in a business. So therefore, people started giving some more attention to the people dimension. Earlier, people did not matter as a variable. People were just fodder for the business, and anybody, whatever their name or education, they could just come in and start working. But now, with the growing complexity of the business, people started becoming more and more important for any business. And therefore, businesses started realizing that people could not be taken for granted. When you had Henry Ford in the 1920s and 1930s, uh, he would just, he would feel that people definitely need to be invested in, but nothing more than that, more from a humane perspective. In India, the Tatas also gave maternity benefits, they started giving creche benefits, but more from a humanitarian perspective, nothing more. They didn't really have to develop their people as such. But gradually in the 60s, 70s, people started realizing that people are a important variable. And the quality of people that you have in an organization, that at times defines what the organization can do and it can't do. This became all the more important as the service sector started growing as compared to manufacturing. Earlier, the service sector was relatively small. You had agriculture and you had services and you had manufacturing. And service sector being small, you did not really think too much about the people damage. But with services coming up, for example, banking, consulting, investing, you have now IT services, so many processes that are outsourced. So these are all part of the service sector. And gradually, people started realizing that people are not just a cost in a company, but they are also an asset. And the quality of people that you have, that determines the strength of an organization. And then people started realizing not only the strength of an organization, they can also differentiate it themselves from another organization based on the quality of people they have in the organization. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Great. So I will share a few slides and we will discuss these slides based on the context that I just said. So now it is one thing to say that, yes, I appreciate the value that people bring to the table. That's very good. But that's not enough. You like both Arpita and Vivek said, that it is a range of tasks. It is a range of work that is involved in talent management. But before we look at it from a task perspective, what is more important is the vision, is the perspective that talent management can be not just a cost center, not just a focus area, but it can be a strategic differentiator. Okay. It can differentiate me as a company vis-a-vis other companies in the same industry and give me a sustained advantage. So that is the perspective which is very important, before we get into the various activities that are involved. So here is a quotation from a gentleman who's written a book, The Future Ready Organization, How Dynamic Capability Management is Reshaping the Modern Workplace. So Gyan Nagpal, was my manager at one point of time. And so he says that given the journey that talent management is on, we do seem to need new answers to new problems rather than another retrofit of best practices. So that's a good statement that he's making, that the journey of talent management, it started some time ago and it's changing as we talk. Particularly 2020, this year has been a hugely impactful year on every dimension of business, no less on talent management. So we need new answers to new problems. And we have seen there are umpteen number of new problems that have cropped up in the last 8 or 9 months. And we need new answers. So if we were to look at the diagram, so first is you have the numbers, and these are all what comprises talent management. First, you have talent strategy and planning. So this is, as I said, the first of all, most important is the vision that you need to have. So the vision is the strategy part. So you work on the talent strategy and the planning, and you decide what kind of people you want to hire, at what compensation, at what skill set, from where, with what educational background, why do you want X% of MBAs, or why do you want X% of people with higher studies or R&D research, etc., etc. It all needs to be aligned to your business proposition. So, for example, I worked in a construction and engineering company, and every year we had to hire about 300 civil engineering graduates, because that was aligned to our business pipeline of expanding at about 20%. So it was a 12,000 crore company and growing at 20-25%. So therefore, you needed X number of new civil engineers. So your talent strategy has to be aligned to your business strategy. Next is, if you have 300 people who need to be hired, then how do you source? How do you recruit these people? So logistically, you have to look at consultants, you have to look at internal referrals, you have to look at advertisements, you have to look at job sites, and you have to source all of those people. Next is, talent management is very integrated, and if you have a integrated approach to talent management, then how do you manage the performance of these people? Because hiring is one thing, then once they are inside the organization, one has to be fair and one has to be appear to be fair. So that is very critical in the health of an organization and how the employees perceive the organization. So one gets into performance management. Next is something that you are doing in ISTD, where in a lot of depth, which is learning and development. So that is again a critical differentiator. That is particularly in, for example, the engineering company that I'm talking about. So here, project management skills, engineering skills, planning skills, uh, contracting skills, these were very, very critical. And the learning and development team had to ensure that people were up to the mark. Then, of course, goes without saying, managerial and leadership development skills. Those were very, very critical. Next, very critically, which is unfortunately underplayed regularly in most organizations, is succession planning. What kind of leadership pipeline you have in place? So do you have a leadership pipeline? Do you want to recruit from internal uh, talent, or do you want to go outside? So that is a decision that the company needs to take. So succession planning is very critical, and that decision of how much to make and how much to buy, how much talent to grow internally and how much to acquire from outside, that is a decision which is taken by an organization time in, time out. So any thoughts on succession planning? Have you seen this in practice? Any observations that you may have?
Sir, I'm Vivek. Sir, I want to share one thing in the organization where I have spent my maximum time, that is Pfizer.
Mhm.
So maybe a decade ago, it was said that a manager was recognized by how many managers he produced, means how many people he got promoted or he developed rather. So that was one of a very important aspect, but maybe it was quite some time back. So at that time, there was no very few outside recruitment. It was all internal promotions. So this was special recognition for a manager who could promote maximum number of people from his team, who could develop his people. So that was the importance that was given to succession planning.
Yeah, Vivek, that's a very good observation. So, yes, you're absolutely right. In many organizations, I worked in GE for 6 years, and there uh, a good leader was recognized by not just the business results, but also the number of leaders he or she was able to groom.
Exactly, sir. Exactly.
So that was the hallmark of a good leader, that they were able to groom other leaders, and who in turn did well for the company. And therefore, there was always a focus on building a talent pipeline within the organization. Great. Uh, but some companies do this. Unfortunately, I don't see too many companies doing that. And I would also say that there are many leaders and managers who ensure that they don't grow their people, because if they grow their people, they feel they are at risk. And I don't know, you may be familiar with Jack Welch's perspective. So he used to say that the job of a leader or a job of a good manager is to make himself or herself redundant. And if you work towards making yourself redundant, that can be achieved only by developing capability within your team so that they are able to take over the responsibilities that you have today and work towards making you redundant. But what I've seen in many organizations is that people cling on to their skills, they do not share their abilities in in order to ensure that there is no successor anywhere nearby. So any thoughts on that? Why do you think that happens?
That's insecurity, maybe. They feel that they want to be important. They don't want because it's a negative perspective, but of late that has developed more, means that people developing their own team and grooming them, maybe that was more it had more importance maybe 10 years before, but of late I think people love to maybe hire from outside rather than developing internal talent. Means that I feel that's my personal experience, I think.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that is you're right. Absolutely, that is the way things are. And one reason could be that the organizational leadership, of course, like you rightly said, that at an individual level, it is insecurity. That if I train somebody to take over my place, then where will I go? So what Jack Welch thought of is very good, but in a ideal situation where a company is growing, where there are more opportunities coming towards everyone, then you can make yourself redundant and you can go on to a different responsibility or even a higher responsibility. But when there are limited number of opportunities, then people will naturally not make themselves redundant, because if I give up this opportunity, then what is it that I'm going to do? So from an organizational perspective, uh, from an individual, of course, an individual will be insecure, but on an organizational level, people need to bring in a end-to-end perspective, suggesting that if you make yourself redundant, the organization will take care of you. So do not worry. You will being redundant doesn't mean that you are redundant in the organization. It's only in your role that you are, and you will be moving on to perhaps even a better role.
Yes, yes.
So I know a gentleman. He's working for a US company where they have a very liberal policy of moving people around globally. So he was looking after procurement in India, and he developed his team very well. Once he did that, he's an Indian, and once he did develop his team, they realized that now his team can do a good job on their own. So they had an opening in Scandinavia, and they posted him there. So he's a happy man. He's posted in Scandinavia, and one of the good things that he had done was he had created a great team in India, and they continue while he is now the heading procurement in Sweden. So that's a good story, but very often stories don't take shape like that. Anyway, so that's succession planning, a very very critical part, and we will talk more about it. Next is leadership development. Now this is again very very critical, and sometimes organizations have a very formal program. They encourage more people to develop as leaders. Again, going back to GE, it was at one time known as a company which produced great leaders, and they had a learning institute in outside New York called Crottonville, where Crottonville was generally seen as a corporate university where people could go learn, debate, and come back as better leaders. So this is a very critical program in every large company, because generally smaller companies are not able to develop an infrastructure for leadership development. But of course, they also can grow their people in different ways rather than having an internal university. So, but this is again a very, very critical part. It basically is an extension of the thought that you differentiate yourself by the quality of the people that you have. Okay. So, leadership development is that way very critical. Last but not the least, perhaps definitely not the least, is compensation. How would you compensate people? How would you grow people? How would you recognize and reward people? So these are fundamental to your talent strategy. How would you like to compensate? So various companies have various methods. A common practice globally everywhere, be it India, France, or Germany, or anywhere, is for the sales team to have a variable plan, and they get compensated basis the sales that they bring in. And same of course goes for operations, but of course that's not as clear cut, as real time as compensation for the sales team tends to be, because the sales team is the revenue pipeline of the company. And if they are able to create a healthy pipeline, then the company thrives. And if they are not, then the company gets stuck. So compensation is a very critical differentiator and definitely a part of the talent management of any company. Now, all of this is, as you can see from this diagram, is held together by a competency framework and the internal HR systems and metrics that are there. So, any thoughts on the role of a competency framework? What role does it play?
Uh, Dipankar's compensation also tied to competency framework.
Yes, all of it is right. You can see that, you can see the diagram over here. We are looking at competency management right in the middle.
Hmm.
And all of this is kind of tied together through a network. It's a very interesting diagram and a very telling diagram. So competency management is right in the middle. So why do you think it is in the middle? Any experience or any thoughts on this?
Of course,
Because if
yeah, Vivek.
please carry on.
Yeah. Competencies to me is the core set of KSAs or the competencies defined by the organization to be achieved, to have by any role or any uh, uh, position held by an employee. He or she must have the set of competencies, and they would be, I'm assuming, also in the performance management, they would be rated against these competencies. These are the skill sets that will get mapped in the L&D also, and the desirable competencies to grow as a leader. However, I'm not able to place with the compensation bit how that fits in.
The more the competency, the more the compensation.
Incentive is,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Very simple.
Got it.
More the competency, more the compensation. So you want more money, you have to enhance your competence. Okay, great. So yes, Arpita. So competency is the skills that you bring to the table, uh, the behavioral dimension of how you work, your motivation level. All of that cumulatively is the competency that you bring. And if we add up all of that for the the workers in the organization, then we get a sense of the competency that exists in the organization. So now competency frameworks typically, they are hierarchical, or they tend to be like a taxonomy. So you have multiple competencies, and at each level it can become different. For example, at a operational level, if competency is, let's say, communication skills, so at a operation level, it will be your ability to interact with your peers, to be able to influence your team. While at a senior leadership level, communication skills would be how you are able to articulate the organization's vision. How well are you able to articulate the strategy of the organization? So, same competency will change with the level. And overall, a competency framework is basically a clear set of guidelines in terms of what are the key skills that the organization is looking for. If you have those skills, wonderful, you are ready to do your job well and maybe even go to the next level. If you don't have those skills, if there is a skill gap, then the L&D department and then the entire ecosystem of the company is there to help you to plug that gap. And if the existing skills and the competency framework, the gap between the two is very high, then probably the person is a wrong hire. So the competency framework allows you to select people, talent strategy, sourcing, recruiting. You select the right people based on the right competency. You manage performance and reward the people who have the right competency. Learning and development fills the gap between the existing skills and the expected set of skills. Succession planning, again, you will evaluate people whether they are ready to succeed or not based on the competency. Same with leadership development. You will evaluate people on the competency framework that you have. And Arpita's question, compensation, you will compensate those people more. You will call them the A raters or maybe the B plus raters, are people who are able to demonstrate the competency at their level. So therefore, if you have a bell curve, you will be able to show why the top 10% are being compensated more as compared to the bottom 20%. Arpita, is that making sense now? Compensation?
Yes, Pankaj, because I was kind of correlating compensation with performance and succession or leadership with competency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we all know, money talks, and money is very critical. So money is, the compensation part gets reflected in every dimension, just as all the other dimensions are also important. So that's integrated talent management. They are kind of interdependent and crisscrossing each other. And also HR systems and matrices. So HR systems, for example, annual appraisals, maybe reward and recognition programs, uh, uh, nominations for training and development. So all of those are part of the HR systems, and there would be metrics also in terms of how much attrition is tolerable, how much is not, how much increment is acceptable, how much is not. So there are multiple metrics that are there, and we will talk a bit more about that as we go. So any thoughts, any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. So generally, how many people do we have in this class?
Talent management is usually 3 to 4 because I've done the Bangalore. I think Vivek also attended Mumbai and Bangalore because there's another subject called OD. And most of the team have taken, I believe, the OD part. But there are few students who catch up on the YouTube recording of these classes. So some are not active in classes. But I
Okay.
could see in general 3 to 4 or 5 maybe in talent management. But this is the first time we are having a 6 o'clock session. In the last 1.5 years, I've never seen. So maybe some could not catch the timing change or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday evening is kind of
Yeah.
not the best of times.
Yeah. But since 8 o'clock in morning today, we are having back-to-back classes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, we are kind of
You must be exhausted.
a little bit.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, fine. Fine. So we will move on. And only thing is, I'm in the Tata classes which I take. There are about 60 participants, and so I have questions and observations coming in from all directions. So therefore, this is a bit of a damper to have
yeah.
such few
But
numbers.
Dipankar, what we're also trying to do is maybe if you can share certain case studies of
Mhm.
real examples that we can go through, or certain assignments at times
Mhm.
could also help, so that we can correlate with our organization and we can
Yeah, definitely,
put those
definitely. Yeah,
concepts.
we will do that. Okay, so as we saw that there are different components of talent management. What underlines all of it is your talent strategy. Now it varies organization to organization. Some organizations really treasure the talent. They want to develop their talent, and some organizations are very casual about the talent. They feel that we can acquire any talent from the market, and so we don't really need to be all that focused on developing a talent strategy. But uh, if an organization were to have a robust strategy, then some of those components would be workforce planning and talent acquisition. So workforce planning is very critical. When you are doing your annual budgeting, you need to have a projection in terms of what is the number of people you will hire at which level, and this workforce plan needs to be aligned to your business strategy for the next 1 year, next 2 years. Some companies do it for 3 years or even more. So next is you look at capability development and performance. What is the current capability and performance, and what is it that you need, in the coming years? So this, of course, is very, 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 very critical. I cannot overstate the importance of looking at capability development, uh, particularly as we know that the only thing that's permanent is change. Organizations are changing rapidly in this year. During this year, organizations have changed like perhaps they've never changed before. So every organization needs to be sure in terms of what are the skill sets they would need 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and how to invest in those skill sets so that they are ready with the right people when that comes up in a big way in the industry. For example, if you were to look at the great Indian IT companies, Wipro or Infosys or TCS, uh, we are very good in terms of software programming, but now suddenly you have AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, data analytics, and suddenly there is a slew of new things which have come up, and the software companies are there but kind of playing catch up. Maybe one of the reasons is that they did not foresee all of these new capabilities coming up in the market and clients demanding these capabilities. So uh, that level of readiness is very critical for a company to be able to succeed in the market. So this is extremely critical. Uh, the skills that you bring to the table, that will decide whether you progress and enhance your revenue or get stuck where you are or maybe even shrink as a business. And third is the leadership and high potential development. So this also at times is treated as the heart of talent management, which is your high potential development. Now, statistically, it has been seen that if you just invest in your top 10 percentage, uh, they can grow your business exponentially as compared to the rest of the 90%. So we have a bit of a Pareto situation over here that the top 10 to 20%, they are responsible, or they are the ones who take 80% of your growth forward. So how you identify your high potentials, how you develop your high potentials, that is something that you get from talent analytics. So increasingly of late, you see a lot of talent analytics coming up in the market. And these talent analytics tools and models, they are helping the businesses identify and address the high potential people. If you have regular attrition of about maybe 10 to 15% annually in your company, but if you have a similar attrition in your high potential people, then chances are that you are really bleeding as a company, because every company makes an effort to ensure that the high potential people, or the high pots as they are generally called, uh, that attrition is not allowed, or people try to restrict it to a minimum. So as a manager in GE, if I had, let's say, 6 or 7 people who were rated 1, and if they left, then I as a manager would be held accountable, and I had to do everything in my scope to try and retain the high potential person. If a person with a rating of 2 or 3 left, then 3 is fine. They are encouraged to leave. But if two rating with 2 leaves, then it's worrisome, but it is not something that the business will really hold against you. But if a person with a rating of 1 leaves, then all hell would break loose. And you would, along with HR, try and retain that person whichever way possible. And while, of course, large organizations don't offer increments on the fly, but all kinds of other incentives, like giving them additional projects, giving them an opportunity to travel, um, giving them maybe a supervisory role over a few people, anything, all of that would be dangled to ensure the high potential person doesn't leave the organization. So, net talent management is the full scope of HR processes to attract, onboard, develop, motivate, retain high performing employees. And talent management is aimed at improving business performance through practices that make employees more productive. So, now before I move to, where we talk more about talent management, I just want to focus a little bit on the Balanced Scorecard. So, are you familiar with the BSc?
Yes.
Okay. Any thoughts you would like to share on the BSc and its implication for talent management?
BSc is overall, a set of goals that we are having in our organization as well. And of course, it's like a global thing, which is driven from the top. But in talent management, it should tie up with the other components. So we have operations, in our case, processes, to which the L&D goals get tied up, and similarly finance and customer. So there are objectives to be which are defined and measurable, and these have to be achieved with a focus on tying up all the 4 parameters which is there in the scorecard. And there are,
Great,
of course, reviews happening on a monthly basis on this. And
great. So good to see that BSc is operationalized in your organization and is running as a regular process. Uh, so the whole thought behind BSc is a very healthy thought. So before Kaplan came up with this tool, uh, it's always been the case that the most important department in an organization tends to be, any thoughts, which was the most important department in every organization?
finance.
Yeah, absolutely. You get another chocolate. So every organization basically decided and evaluated its health in terms of how it was doing financially, what was the top line, which is the revenue, and what are the margins, which is the bottom line, And that was good enough for every company to know how they were doing. So in a way, it was a very unhealthy way of looking at any organization, because you could be doing well from a top line and bottom line perspective, and yet you may not be a healthy company because you do not have healthy processes. You do not have the right people with the right skill set. So while today you may be doing very well, but if you are not able to have the other dimensions in place, then chances are that the smallest challenge that comes your way, and you will slip and fall headlong, and maybe cease to exist as a business. As you are aware that about 50 years ago, the Fortune 500 companies, almost 60% of them, have either fallen out of the Fortune 500 or they have disappeared completely. So that is the story of many companies. And one of the reasons is that they do not give enough importance to the people dimension in the business. They feel that only the revenue, the cash flow, the margins, those are important. Rest is all something that can be covered up quickly. So the thought of the balance scorecard is basically there are other aspects of the business which are very important. What are the health of the processes? How healthy is your company in terms of process? Is it a process oriented company or a just a people centric company? People centric in the sense individual centric. You have a few good individuals who are directing, otherwise there are no processes as such. How you treat your customers, and what role does innovation play in your company? How do you learn? How do you grow? How do you prosper? So these are, and if you notice, internal processes, innovation, this is all people centric. So how it also has an impact on how you treat the people in the organization. So how you deal with it, what are the processes, what are the people processes, how do you grow your people, all those things become very important. And this perspective is a very healthy perspective, and this is a perspective which is now there in all mature companies. People understand that finance is not the only department. There is all the other departments are equally critical for the long term health of a company. Otherwise the company, for example, innovation, uh, we know what happened to Kodak, right?
Yes.
We know what happened to Nokia. So they were too sure of themselves because they were selling well, they were the number one companies, and they did not really think uh, anything else matters, because their products are good, their top line is good, they're number one or number two in the market, and they were unassailable. Then suddenly they discovered that innovation really made them redundant. So therefore, while we will not really be talking about the BSc, but it is just, I wanted to discuss this as a shift, as one of the landmarks, the shift from the finance orientation of a business to the people orientation of a business, or a more holistic orientation of a business. That every dimension counts, and the people dimension is as critical as the financial dimension, or as critical as the customers. There is a book by HCL, ex-HCL chairman, Mr. Vineet Nair, where he talks about customers being as important as employees, and employees being perhaps even more important than customers, because if you have happy employees, then you have happy customers. So therefore, the people dimension comes into place. So great, I will move on. So let's see a short video on talent management.
Management can often be perceived as elusive. Human resource professionals themselves commonly have different definitions of talent management. That said, talent management is a set of integrated organizational human resource processes designed to attract, develop, engage, and retain productive, engaged employees. The goal
The
of talent
sound is not
management is to
visible
create a
at my
high
screen.
performance, sustainable.
Sorry, it's not visible.
It's not visible. Maybe
Okay,
the presentation is to be closed and then
okay. Just give
There's
me a
only
minute.
voice, no video, only
yeah,
voice.
yeah.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
The definition of talent management can often be perceived as elusive. Human resource professionals themselves commonly have different definitions of talent management. That said, talent management is a set of integrated organizational human resource processes designed to attract, develop, engage, and retain productive, engaged employees. The goal of talent management is to create a high performance, sustainable organization that meets its strategic and operational goals and objectives. While professional perspectives on talent management vary dramatically, the fact is human resource professionals do talent management on a daily basis. Let's take a look at a model that defines talent management in clear terms. This talent management model illustrates key processes to ensure organizations attract, retain, and engage talented staff. Centered on learning, the processes of recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and selecting are all major components of talent management. The talent management model is built on the premise that we must attract, retain, and engage employees at all times through all decisions. Let's define each of these three fundamental elements of talent management. Attract. Identifying and persuading the right people at the right time for the right reasons. Engage. The extent to which employees are committed to their organization's goals and values, motivated to contribute to organizational success, and the ability at the same time to enhance their own sense of well-being. Retain. A systematic effort focused not only on retaining an organization's talented performers, but also to create and foster a welcoming work environment and high retention culture. The end result is an organization that operates more effectively and efficiently, while being a great place to work. Talent management is centered on employee learning, best accomplished through a learning organization. A learning organization is an organization that has an enhanced capacity to learn, adapt, and change. Many companies, recognizing the strategic importance of learning, have strived to become learning organizations. Training processes are carefully scrutinized and aligned with organizational goals. In a learning organization, training is seen as part of a system designed to create human capital. Recruiting is the process of finding and hiring the best qualified candidate from within or outside the organization for a job opening in a timely and cost-effective manner. The recruitment process includes analyzing the requirements of a job and attracting employees to fill that job. Interviewing, or a job interview, is a type of employment test that involves a conversation between a job applicant and a representative of the organization. Interviews are one of the most popularly used devices for selection. Normally done in face-to-face meetings, an interview involves asking a job applicant questions to determine whether the applicant is suitable for the position. Handled properly, the interview process is undertaken with deliberation and planning to accomplish the task of selecting the best person for the job. Selecting, or selection, is the process of evaluating candidates for a specific job and selecting an individual for employment based on certain criteria. Employee selection can range from a very simple process to a very complicated process depending on the organization hiring and the position. Certain employment laws, such as anti discrimination regulations, must be obeyed during the selection process. And the final element of the talent management model, onboarding. The onboarding process acclimates new hires and ensures that they quickly feel welcomed and valued by the organization. This process enables new employees to become productive members of the organization who understand expectations and their job roles. Onboarding goes beyond traditional orientation programs, which focus mainly on managing policies, forms, and procedures.
Okay, so that's a reiteration of some of the points that we discussed. So let's move now. This is an introductory session, and we have discussed a little bit about what talent management is all about. Now we will, there's an article by Hewitt which has been shared with you, I think, and it would be good if you go through it. But what we will do is we will talk about some of the key challenges that are there in talent management in today's industry, and we will look at top 5 challenges, and some of the uh, observations about why these challenges exist, why what is being done to address. So basically, where are we today in terms of these challenges, and then in the next set of classes we will look at how best to address these challenges. So first is, as I was saying, that the most important part is how do you strategize your talent. Now every organization that you go to, you will see the senior leaders will tell you that, wow, people, they are our most important assets. But are they doing anything about making their most important asset strategic? That is the second thing which you may not come across. So there is one business strategy that is created, and sometimes your people strategy is not aligned to your business strategy. Therefore, consistent execution and integration of talent practices are not there, and organizations are building stronger employment brands as part of their talent strategy. So these are 3 observations which are there in terms of talent strategy. You would come across some organizations where, um, though it could be an IT company or it could be a manufacturing company, they have a very strong talent proposition. Let's say Google. Any thoughts on Google's talent strategy, or how they think of people? Anyone?
So Google gives a lot of importance to its employees, means a lot of facilities are given to see to it, ensure that the employees are at absolute peace of mind and they have so that they can give off their best. Means they are always happy and satisfied. That I
Yes, you're right. So they ensure that all their employees have all the infrastructural support that they need. And there are a few videos on YouTube which tell us about the Google workplace, and it's better than Disneyland. The workplace is such. However, of late, there have been flip sides also. They have given so much latitude to the employees that employees have started taking decisions on behalf of the leadership. For example, Google a few years ago got a project, $10 billion worth of project, which was supposed to help the US armament industry. And the employees refused to do the project, and the company had to say no to the US government. So, what I'm trying to say is there needs to be a balance between employee empowerment and employee the lack of empowerment in a culture. Anyway, so the talent strategy has to be very clear. It has to be aligned to your business strategy, and uh, many organizations develop a very strong value proposition for that to attract talent. So here are some figures. So this is the degree of alignment that Hewitt is talking about of workforce strategy and business strategy. So 4%, and this is largely international companies. So 4% have zero alignment between their work strategy and a business strategy. 38% have some sort of alignment, and 40% to a degree, and only 17% consistently have both business strategy and workforce strategy aligned. So that's not a very large percentage, and I wonder how much of it would be if we were to be serving Indian companies. But this is the situation which strategy. So so this is a situation which should not be there at all, but unfortunately that is how it is. So talent strategy is not aligned. People create talent strategies in silos, and that doesn't really speak to the overall strategy of the organization. So that is an issue that needs to be looked at. You as young professionals, when you are working in the industry, you need to ensure from a HR perspective that these two strategies are aligned and talking to each other. So moving on, workforce planning and talent acquisition. So again, this is very critical. As I mentioned that in my previous organization, we used to kind of plan for the year, the budgeting would happen, and also the workforce planning would be aligned to the budget and the proposed growth. So but unfortunately, in most companies, workforce planning is very short-term focused, and they just look at, okay, how many people do I need, because there is a new business which has come, and I need to fulfill the headcount requirements, and therefore that is what is my workforce plan. Talent acquisition fundamentals, are there in terms of the way I'm going to acquire talent, but not more than that. And most companies report being able to attract the talent that they need. So here, basically, there is the graph tells you about the forecasting the supply and demand for skills. So how many years in advance do you do that? So in your company, if I may ask, typically the plans that you have, how many years in advance is it done?
Usually annually for us when the budgets are planned. Like it's just got over, so September,
Okay.
October we plan it for the next year.
It's actually done same as Arpita said, but
Okay.
I think in Pfizer for the in the top level they plan it for 3 years in advance. The top level they do it in 3 years for
Okay.
the country managers.
Okay, great. So I will just share an example. Uh, so basically in, for example, in GE, what happens is that you have something called uh, S1, which is for next 3 years. And then you have S2, which is for next 5 years. So you have the S1, you have an annual plan, you have a S1, and you have a S2. S2 is very flexible. It is more like a projection that this is what could happen. And S3 is has more firmer numbers. And S1, of course, is your annual plan, of course, is absolutely number driven. So that's how the the planning is done in GE. But of course, different organizations have different rhythms. And here the numbers tell you that in terms of, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, top executive talent, business unit leaders, only 7% have a window which is more than 5 years. Then you have 3 to 5 years. And best thing is that for something as important as executive talent, 19% have zero forecast. So that is quite shocking. Same goes for senior management and SPP. You have 18% with zero forecast, and a majority of them, you know, are between 1 to 2 years or less than a year. Same with frontline, you have 36% with 1 to 2 years and 24% with no forecast at all. So that gives us a picture in terms of where we stand in terms of talent acquisition and workforce planning. And there is no clear plan in large number of organizations, and it is done as a ad hoc measure and not really as a well-planned exercise. So moving on, uh, capability development. This is, of course, very, very critical. And the whole point of being focused on people strategy is enhancing capability. So you have lack of accountability and capability for workforce development. In many organizations, I have seen that the focus on training, on learning is very nominal. There is hardly any focus in the organization. In every review, the first part of the review is taken by financial numbers. Second part of the review is taken by operational numbers. Third part of the review is taken by any customer feedback that there may be. Fourth part of the review is taken by some people metrics, and then comes administration. Last but not the least comes up training. So that's not a good situation. I'm not saying every organization is like this, but large number of organizations tend to be like this. So select organizations directly tackle capability development challenges, and reward differentiation is still more of a concept than a reality. So here you can see that senior executives accountable for developing the direct reports through performance management process. You have 19% who are not at all, and 44% to some degree. So that's a big number who don't seem to be taking any accountability to develop their teams. So that's a big gap that is there in organizations. And same goes for managers. They are accountable for developing their direct reports. So 18% and 49%, which is 68%, 67%, do not, or to a very small degree, they develop their people. So that's again a big gap, and which needs to be filled by HR personnel. Next is leadership and high potential development. And this is, in a way, it is really the heart of talent management when you are talking about high pot development. So in uh, GE, they had a program which was a fast track program. A fast track program is where if somebody is identified as a high potential employee, then chances are that while the regular promotion cycle was about 3 years at every level, for them the cycle was slightly shorter. Plus, they would be rotated around in various departments. So 2 years, let's say, in operations, another 2 years in HR, another 2 years maybe in procurement. So they would keep, moving around the organization. And also there were exclusive programs at a global level. For example, FMP was a program which is on financial management planning. Financial management program. So somebody who gets into FMP would be, let's say, doing order management in Japan for 2 years or 3 years. They would be doing general ledger in East Europe, maybe for 2 years, 3 years. This was, I'm talking about global G, not G capital in India. So high potential development is a very critical dimension of any talent management initiative that a company has. So here what we see is significant progress has been made in building leadership capability, which is good. Opportunities exist to better align and execute leadership programs, and high potential development is a priority for many organizations, but consistent execution falls short. So we see that senior leaders are viewed as corporate assets versus business unit or geographic assets. So, executive involvement is very high in leadership development, and they see 73% agree that senior leaders are important assets. Our CEO and board of directors are actively involved with leadership development activities. So 60% agree, while 40% do not. Our organization's leaders teach and develop new leaders. So 64% agree and 36% do not agree. So any experience in this area?
In high post development.
Yeah, leadership helping develop
Yeah.
high potential people.
So on the India level, we do it like it's like a 2 year program. The leadership level is done differently in Daksha, but India level usually like a post appraisal and over the last 2 3 years performance, which gets mapped. We then put them, we use a 9 box grid, and the high potentials are identified to as a succession to the leadership pipeline. And they similarly to a smaller level, they undergo a 2 year program with different departments, training and execution. And end of this 2 to 3 year, depending on the role that they are, it's a fast track growth for these particular team members.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So that's really good. That's a very robust program by the sound of it, and I'm sure it's kind of a healthy program that is sustained across the years. However, very often companies don't have a very good program, and they do it more like an ad hoc set of initiatives for the high potentials. Also, sometimes leaders are involved in delivering nice learning sessions, are involved in even they join training programs and address the leadership and the mid-level leadership. So those are very good activities. But where I feel a gap exists is where the leaders also need to be part of a structured program and not drop by and attend, give an address when there is a program going on, uh, and nobody really tracks the impact of that. So it needs to be more structured where leaders help develop leaders. So it's good to hear from Arpita that it's a very structured program. And there are other organizations also where it is very structured. But more often than not, it is not very well structured. And this is where talent management can play an important role in retaining top talent and also growing top talent. Okay, moving on, talent analytics. This is something which is big nowadays, so the observations which Hewitt got from the survey is few companies are strategic about what they measure. For most, the focus is on operations rather than outcomes, and select organizations are leading the way in talent analytics. So I'm sure the big four are heavy on analytics, and they, dig deep into talent analytics. So here, the survey, the percentage of companies collecting development and succession planning metrics is kind of percentage job openings filled from succession pool is 33%. Succession pipeline depth, 37% have some depth. Internal promotion rate is 56%. Percentage of employees with critical skills, 24. Learning and development hours per employee, 48% are measuring it. learning and development spent per employee, 49% are measuring it. So these are very important metrics. And like Peter Drucker famously said, what gets measured gets done. Uh, I also believe that what gets reviewed gets done. So, and you will be able to review only if you have concrete numbers in front of you. So, so therefore, it's very important that as talent managers, as HR people, we have a track on these numbers. For example, I'm running a managerial effectiveness program at the organization where I work. But unfortunately, what I discovered was when I was trying to gauge the impact of the program, that globally there is no baselining of the attrition for various managers. As people managers, how much attrition do they have in their teams? So there is countrywide a country there is a country-wise breakup of the attrition numbers, but not manager-wise. As a result, I cannot track the impact of the program on attrition. So, so those are some real life challenges that we face because if you don't have the right analytics, then you cannot drive the right results. So those are some of the things that we will be talking about more at length. And like Arpita said, we will look at some case situations as we go to understand how it works better. And also leverage our existing experience. And I hope there are more people who join in next time so that we are able to cross leverage our experiences. So any feedback, we'll close at this point today. Any feedback, any observations, so that we can, because this is the first class I have taken, and I'm not sure how the classes flow in ISTD. So any observations and feedback, and that would be welcome, so that I can tweak my delivery accordingly.
Thanks, Dipankar. It's been a very good session, rather, and I like the real time the service that you've been sharing. It's really useful, and this is a similar flow happening in rest of classes also. The only difference, like I mentioned, as we progress, of course, there are some either some assignment to be done, or maybe a breakout session where we discuss on a case and come back. But then the team needs to be larger. Definitely, the group needs to be larger for that to happen. And also we've got certain assignments to be done from ISTD side itself,
Okay.
which has been posted on the portal, and that needs to be closed by us in December. I can share those to you if you wish to have.
Yeah, sure. I would like to have a look.
Yeah. Can we have your email ID? Then maybe we can connect.
Yeah, sure.
In the
It's
chat box, if you can. Please have.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. One second. So that's my email ID, and you can share, any input that you would like to, so that I
And
can.
when are we having the next class?
I think it's going to be same time next week.
Next week, is it? Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. You will
Because yeah,
let me know how the classes over there for the Dipankar
yeah.
sir.
Okay, because of Diwali there was a gap, so but although we are
नहीं
all
maybe
available, I mean,
हाँ क्योंकि next week